closed session. We have 3 items. First item, 4.1, property acquisitions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's correct. 3 items reporting out of council closed session. The first item is to receive the report and that confidential direction to staff be confirmed.
Thank you. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Humphrey, second by Councillor Gilliland. Any comments or questions? Record a vote.
Court vote has been requested for the first item of council reporting out of closed session. Councillor Kim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Kim votes yes. Mayor Maracus?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson votes yes. Councillor Humphreys?
Yes.
Councillor Humphreys votes yes. Councillor Gilliland? Councillor Gilliland votes yes. Councillor Gartner?
Yes.
And Councillor Gallo?
No.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Next item, 4.2, property matter, Metrolinx. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The second item of council reporting out of closed session motion will be that the report be received and that confidential direction to staff be confirmed.
Thank you. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Kim, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any comments or questions? Record a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Court vote has been requested for the second item of council reporting out of closed session. Councillor Gartner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Maracus.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Kim.
Yes.
Councillor Kim votes yes. Councillor Gallo?
Yes.
Councillor Humphreys? Councillor Humphreys votes yes. Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson votes yes. And Councillor Gilliland? Councillor Gilliland votes yes. The motion carries.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
sorry, I know the vote won't be changed, but I just wanted to say on the first item of closed session, I meant to vote no. Thank you.
Okay. Well, okay. And I'm seeing the clerk nodding that, yes, it won't be changed, but thank you for correcting that, Councillor Carter.
Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, next is 4.3. This is in regards to lease administration. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion reporting out of closed session for item number 3 is to receive the report and that confidential direction to staff be confirmed.
Thank you. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Thompson, second. Councillor Humphreys. Comments or questions? Seeing none. Record a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Recorded vote has been requested for the third item of council reporting out of closed session. Councillor Humphreys, how do you vote? Yes. Councillor Humphreys votes yes. Councillor Kim?
Yes.
Councillor Kim votes yes. Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson votes yes. Councillor Gartner?
Yes.
Councillor Gallo?
No.
Councillor Gilliland? Councillor Gilliland votes yes. And Mayor Maracus?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Confirming bylaw. Someone like to move that? Councillor Humphreys, second. Councillor Gilliland. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Kim, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Over to you, Councillor Thompson, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Maracus. Mr. Clerk, the time is 7:03 p.m. on Tuesday, November 30th, 2021. I'd like to call this general committee meeting to order. We would like to start by acknowledging that the land on which we live and work is the traditional territory of the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples whose presence here continues to this day. Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the William Treaties First Nations. We acknowledge and thank them for sharing this land with us. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and of how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. Council, we have a notice of motion that was circulated by Mayor Maracus, who was asked that it be added to the agenda for discussion next week. In order to do so, we must waive the procedural bylaw to allow it to be placed as a notice of motion on tonight's agenda. Is there anybody willing to move that? Councillor Humphreys, seconded by Mayor Maracus. Of course, the waive procedural bylaw, it takes 2/3. Any comments or concerns? on the waiving of the procedural bylaw? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of waiving procedural bylaw? Opposed? Mr. Clerk, I can't see on the agenda, on the screen, Councillor Gardner and Councillor Gallo. There we go. Thank you. I'm sorry, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Gallo, would you mind just indicating whether you were for or against the waiving of the procedural bylaw?
Thank you. I was for.
I was for.
Thank you so much. May I please have a motion to approve the revised agenda? Moved by Mayor Maracas, seconded by Councillor Kim. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Next up, we have any declarations of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none, we'll move on to community presentations. We have none. And then we'll move on now to delegations. This evening, we have two delegations. Our first is Susan Morton Leonard and Lynn Brown regarding the train whistle cessation. Ms. Leonard and Ms. Brown, please state your name and reminded you have 5 minutes for your delegation. Mr. Clerk, are they on?
My name's Lynn Brown.
Go ahead, Ms. Brown.
Well, really, I'm waiting for Susan. She's the one that's going to be doing most of the presentation. Susan, are you there?
Yes,
Okay, great.
I'm sorry. This is my first Zoom conference, so I'm a little antiquated on how to proceed. Anyhow,
worries.
I hope I'm fully automated now. Good evening. We were deeply disappointed after reading the staff report prepared by Michael Back, the traffic and transportation analyst for the town of Aurora, that we received yesterday. This report, initially requested by council back in March 27th, 2018, was to help council determine if money should be added to the 2019 annual budget to improve pedestrian safety equipment at 3 of Aurora's level crossings. The pedestrian upgrade would enable train whistling to end in the Aurora in accordance with Transport Canada's train whistle cessation program. Other than Councillor Gilliland and Councillor Gallo, everyone else here tonight was a member of the 2018 council. But it was this council who voted in the fall of 2019 to not proceed with the project despite years of citizens' requests. This issue is more than blaring train horns. It is about adding modern safety equipment to protect the daily foot traffic moving across the 4 level crossings in Aurora. To do so, the 19th century practice of train whistling would end, relieving residents and workers in the whistle zone of the constant daily noise pollution affecting their well-being. Eventually, it will also include the new residents occupying the residential development slated for Bursey Streets directly across the West Tracks. Suspending train horns will also lessen the noise competition between outdoor events and activities held in Town Park and elsewhere in the cultural precinct, a short block west of the tracks. Upgraded safety equipment has been installed to protect vehicular traffic from commuter trains moving through Aurora's downtown core. Are vehicles more important to council than pedestrian safety? Why would council vote against joining the 21st century by protecting everyone's safety at all level crossings? People who are deaf, blind, deal with mobility issues, have mental health conditions, often exacerbated by loud, unexpected noises, plus those unfamiliar with the practice of train whistles are still at risk. They are not protected by archaic train whistling. This report indicated that it would cost the taxpayer $1,110,000 in 2019 to design and install the Transport Canada required pedestrian safety equipment, a bargain price by comparison to the multi-million-dollar price tag of other capital projects in Aurora recently. The Metrolinx project of grade separation on Wellington Street, plus the installation of pedestrian tunnels with elevators, is projected to finish in 2025. What happens with pedestrian safety at crossings and the train horns blaring during the next 4 years? The roads surrounding the GO station, including Center Street crossing, all remain at grade level. Foot traffic will continue to cross the tracks despite Metrolinx developments to the Barrie GO line owned by them. Metrolinx is presently renovating Aurora's Heritage Go station and platform. No funding is earmarked for pedestrian safety upgrades according to their website, neither at the level crossing on Wellington by the Go station or the southern end of the platform where commuters cross into the West Go parking lot. Perhaps Metrolinx doesn't care about pedestrian safety. Foot traffic is comprised of more than Go train commuters, Go bus users, high school students, and people attending the library, ACC, Town Park, Shepherd's Bush, Leisure Complex, industries, and retail. People need to cross the tracks daily. Shouldn't council care about pedestrians who are not commuters safely crossing the tracks? When the Barrie Go line project is complete, the number of trains moving through Aurora will increase. Every 15 minutes, a train will travel through town, blaring its horn. Metrolinx July 2021 study indicates in the near future, commuter trains will be used more for tourism and family leisure visits than for work commutes. Does council want tourists and citizens coming to Aurora visiting the new Aurora Town Square to be overwhelmed by frequent blaring train horns? The reasons why this council did not fund the train whistle cessation program in 2019, according to the staff report, is cost and not wanting to accept liability for the crossing upgrades. The influence of no action taken by surrounding municipalities dealing with the same issue is also a factor. When will council make decisions based on Aurora citizens' needs? The cost is reasonable, approximately $2 million in 2022 for safety upgrades, which will reduce, not increase liability. Aurora partnering with York Region and Metrolinx is a sound business decision necessary as we enter a new phase of developing better transportation strategies, less reliant on fossil fuel. Council can no longer fear being sued in the event of an accident. The city of Markham partnered with York Region and Metrolinx. They set the precedents. The train whistle cessation is achievable, and we want it in Aurora. Aurora Town Council, please accept responsibility for all citizens crossing the tracks safely and for those who live and work close by, daily tortured by the train horns. Tonight, pass a motion to add a line to the 2022 annual budget to end old-fashioned train whistles in Aurora for good. We know if this issue is not dealt with in 2022, it will be revisited again and again until a future council is willing to responsibly step up. Final comment comes from the e-petition sent to you earlier today. I have been a locomotive engineer for the Canadian Pacific Railway for 15 years, and I can say firsthand 90% of the crossings I traverse over are bell only in residential areas. The noise pollution caused by train whistles are well documented, and their negative effect are not only felt by humans, but wildlife as well. I strongly agree, provided the crossing in question has drop arm crossing gate protection, the need for a whistle should not be applied. Robin Brown, no relation to Lynn, Aurora resident.
Thank you,
Lynn?
Martin Leonard. That's it for your 5-minute delegation, unless a member of council wants to extend it. Did you have any further comments? Otherwise, we'll ask.
Well, the
members of council if they have any
7:14
questions.
train is due to come through at any minute. And we thought maybe an audio of what Lynn has to deal with every day, many times through the day, might be appropriate. But it doesn't seem to have arrived on time. So we'll proceed, and hopefully Lynn can send you the audio.
Wonderful. May I have a motion to receive the comments of the delegation? Councillor Gardner, Councillor Gilliland. Are there any questions for the delegates? Councillor Gardner.
Oh, there's the train
there it is.
now. Because I can hear it too. She gets it worse.
Councillor Gardner, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I would like to ask Lynn, because we're not getting a really good picture of what you go through every day. May I ask, first of all, what area do you live in? Do you live very close to the tracks?
Yes, I do. I live at 9 Birch Court,
I know 9 Birch
which is
Court.
off Walton.
I know Birch Court. It
Yeah.
backs onto the tracks. Thank you.
Yes, it does.
Okay. So are you, could you
Any further
just tell us what you experience with respect to, I guess, noise, vibration, anything else you want to include?
Ms. Brown?
Yes, sorry, train's just going by. I just have the patio door open a little bit so that my dog can go out without interrupting us, but the 714 did it anyway. Yes, it's really a case of feeling as if you don't have any outdoor space whatsoever in the house that you own. The noise is horrendous. I used to sit at the top of the hill that I call and read or just look at the tops of the houses in Aurora and love it. But now it's just impossible because even on weekends, we get awful noise pollution going through the town, constant, every hour. I mean, we used to have quiet weekends. And yes, you know, I get a lot of comments from people to say, oh, well, you move by the tracks. Why don't you just accept it or move on? I've been here a long time in Aurora, since 2001. I moved to the tracks, yes. There were 3 going south, 3 coming north, and it wasn't such an issue. And then it increased, and it increased. And there are people all around my neighborhood that really are even considering moving. And I wanted to make a stand. I don't want to move. I want to do what Markham has managed to do, and that's stop the noise, but mainly protect the pedestrians, because Transport Canada, if you protect the pedestrians, they're in the 21st century already. They will allow you train whistle cessation. So Aurora just needs to get together with Metrolinx, with York Region, as Markham did, and put a stop to the noise. It really is health-wise not very good. You know, I could maybe, if you'll just give me a minute, you just heard a train go north. Here's a train that I have a feeling it went north. Just give me a second, because I too am a little bit, this is the first time we've done anything like this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean,
Ms.
even a cell phone is new to me, so you'll have to excuse me.
Not at all. We appreciate your participation this evening. Councillor Gardner, any further questions?
Well, I don't have a question. But I do have a comment. Is that allowed?
Certainly.
I understand what Ms. Brown is talking about. We have a lot of residents who live along the tracks, and with the trains going, they'll be going every 7 minutes.
With more to come.
Well, I mean, the idea is by 2025, there'll be a train going
Every 15
every
minutes.
15 minutes, but then you've got one going north and then you've got one going south. So,
Well,
Thank you,
you've just heard the north coming train.
Ms. Brown and Ms. Morton Leonard, please wait till you're supposed to ask for questions. Right now, it's councillors that ask the questions, and then we
thank you.
delegate it
Okay.
to various.
I would just like really to point out that it's a different story for different people. Going north hurts a lot more people south of me. Coming south is more, affects me. You know, so it's not just we're in the middle and we hear the train. It's down the tracks.
Right.
It's
Thank you. It's very concerning, and the sound travels a long way. I mean, I used to live, trying to think which house it was, on Walton, and I could hear the train on Walton. And one morning I heard the train whistle, and I knew there'd been an accident, and in fact there had been. So it was my morning alarm clock. That's all. I mean, I sympathize and I empathize. We've been over this many times. Not only everybody who's been on council, but I believe we went through it before that. So we've heard your concerns, and I think that's all I can ask you.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. Just a few comments. I know that Lynn, you and I had spoke to a few people on Birch Court and also up by St. John Side Road as well, just unrelated to our visit. And we had some conversations, and I had actually sat in the backyard of a different neighbor on Walton Drive just to kind of experience a little bit what she was going through. And I think some of the issue too is that because Center Street is so close to Wellington, and I believe they have to, honk the horn 4 times, that by the time that they've crossed over Center Street, that's 8 times, and that, you're just stone's throw from one another. So I can appreciate that sometimes these horns continue on much, much further past those tracks than perhaps that, is, it's upsetting. So it's very noisy, and I totally get it. I've looked into this a little bit, and I know that I've had some conversations that I would kind of dig my heels into this a bit. A lot's been going on in the last few weeks for me, so I haven't been able to get as many answers back, but I have been speaking with staff just about some of the history. There is quite a history on it. We have had some reports here in council, and yes, we did vote not to do this in 2019 because of liability issues and such. At that time, I know that Markham did not successfully have cessation. So, things have changed. And that's not to say that, it's something that we can't look into or revisit and ask questions. And certainly I would like to ask questions. But it does take time, and it did take Markham 13 years to actually get something through. And it does take funding, and there's all these little innuendos. So I've heard you loud and clear. Thank you for delegating, and I am poking around and trying to get as much information as I can. I really do feel for your situation, and hopefully we can come up with some sort of solution soon, because the 15 minutes is definitely really tough to handle. I guess the good news is if it is electrification, that the clanking of the wheels, I guess that sound in general would be alleviated by that solution. So at least that's one good thing that we have looked forward to some of those changes. Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you, Councillor Gilliland. Any further comments or questions for the delegates? Seeing none. All those in favor of receiving? Opposed? That carries. Thank you very much for your delegation. I'm sure that this issue will come up under new business, and somebody will be in touch with you should any action be initiated. Thank you. Our next delegate is Mr. Nick Pileggi. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly, Nick, representing Gillam Residence Limited Partnership regarding item 9.5, the application for the removal of the holding provision on 15520 Yonge Street. Welcome, Nick. Please state your name and reminded that you have 5 minutes for your delegation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening to all members of council. My name is Nick Pileggi, and I'm here on behalf of Gillam Residence Limited Partnership regarding the property at 15520 Yonge Street. It's the former Howard Johnson Hotel that is being redeveloped into a retirement home. If you've driven by the site recently, you'll see that a lot of interior and cleanup works have been done, and it's reached a stage now where the exterior windows and interior finishes can take place, and that's scheduled for the materials are scheduled to come in January. So we've been working with staff on a minor site plan amendment, and I'm here tonight simply to say that I'm in support of the staff recommendation, and we're asking for council support to move this along quickly so that the hold can be removed in January and construction can progress as scheduled. Thanks again for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. May I have a motion to receive and refer the comments of the delegation item 9.5, Mayor Maracas, Councillor Humphreys. Before I go to Councillor Humphreys, Nick, I will say that Saturday night was our Santa Claus parade, and council does have a float, and the majority of us were on that float. And as soon as we passed by the Hojos, we did all note the fact that, all the work that's been done to this point. So it was a little bit of a conversation as the float paraded down Yonge Street. So with that, I will go to Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And that's exactly what I was going to state, Councillor Thompson, that really excited about moving forward. Thank you for the work. It's looking a lot better the way it is right now than it has been in many years. So thank you very much for coming forward. We're looking forward to the finished product and really improving not only the aesthetics of Aurora, but the services that Aurora has to offer our seniors. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Any other comments or questions of the delegate? Seeing none. Thank you very much, Nick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All those in
And thank
favor?
you, members of council.
Opposed? And seeing none. Great. Next up is our consent agenda. Council, we have 2 items on the consent agenda. Did anybody want to have these pulled, or are we simply just having them on for public? Seeing none. May I have a motion to receive consent agenda item 7. Oh, sorry, Councillor Gallo. My apologies. I'm getting used to looking all over the place.
I would like to have a couple questions on the Q3 2021 procurement report, please.
Which one, sorry?
The Q3 2021 procurement report.
Okay, if it's, I'll move it to the regular agenda and then we'll pull it at that time.
Thanks.
So may I have a motion then to receive the consent agenda item 7.1, the public art master plan for information. Moved by Councillor Gillen, seconded by Councillor Gim. Any questions? See none. All those in favor? Carried. Next up, we have the advisory committee meeting minutes. Is there any advisory committee meeting minutes someone would like to pull or address? See none. May I have a motion to receive the advisory committee meeting minutes, items 8.1 to 8.6? Councillor Kim, Councillor Humphreys, any comments or questions on these items? See none. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We'll now move into consideration of items requiring discussion. First up, we'll put item 7.2, the Q3 2021 procurement report. Can I have a motion that the report be received for information? Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Kim. The floor is yours, Mr. Councillor Gallo.
I just wanted to have some clarity on 2 things. I'm not sure who would address this, but just the first table, contractors awarded over 250,000. Just a confirmation that those contracts, while they didn't come to council, the amount in them corresponds to a budget item.
Mrs. Wright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the way we can award these without coming to council is to make sure that we do have available budget, whether it be a capital budget or as part of the operating budget. So there is a budget associated with all of these items.
Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. And the other one on table 3, I'm just curious how this works. The Metro asphalt sealer and repair for $275,000. It's based on an as-need basis from September 1st to October 31st. But there also is an RFP procurement that's going to be finalized for November 1st. Can someone just explain why we would do a sole source or single source when we have an RFP going out? Do you, Mr. Chair?
I'm not sure if that's Mrs. Wright Van Kessel or another director. Go ahead.
So through you, Mr. Chair. So the single source for this was required to have a contract in place while the town was working through the RFP process. So this is only in place until that procurement process is completed.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering, how do we select Metro Asphalt and not someone else for $275,000.
Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through Mr. Chair, I would need to get back to you with that information. I don't have it on hand, but the RFT is being issued, and the reason we're in this situation is because the initial contract was terminated due to performance issues.
Thank you, and I'm happy to get a response to just, I guess my question is, what's the process in which we choose a particular vendor and a single source when we're waiting for an RFT to happen? Why do we choose Metro as opposed to someone else?
Thank you, Councillor Gallo, and look forward to receiving that memo from Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Thank you.
Any further questions with regards to the procurement report?
That was it. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other members of council have a question? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. First up is item 9.1, the procurement modernization project update. I believe we have a presentation to go along with it, so good timing with regards to those questions, Councillor Gallo. Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel, I'll turn it over to you for the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just getting my presentation set up here and screen sharing going. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen now, or it should be coming up.
See it.
All right, thank you. So this evening, I'm going to give you an update on the procurement modernization project that we are working on. So this update is about the current state of procurement at the town of Aurora, and this is before we implement any improvements that we're working on through the procurement modernization project. So basically, it gives us a lay of the land as to where we're at and some insights and ways that we can improve procurement at the town. So our consultant evaluated 4 critical risk areas. And as you can see here, they looked at the how procurement meets operational needs, how we manage to stay within budget, deliver on time, and follow the process rules. As you can see here, that we've definitely got some room for improvement, and there's some opportunities to be able to improve the way we're handling things at the town. Further to this, there were 8 key target areas, which were further broken down into 3 due diligence indicators that our consultant, the procurement law office, evaluated. So these are the 8 different areas that they looked at. And then for each one, for example, for institutional governance, that got broken down into 3 different areas, which is accountability controls, integrity indicators, and open competition requirements. There's a table in the report that's attached this evening that summarizes all these indicators and gives you a high-level summary of the recommendations that's in the detailed consultant's report that we have on the agenda tonight. The consultant provided a radar scoring, and this is essentially how the scoring works. There's a 7-tier scoring system, which goes from A to F, and then Z being something you really don't want to see, which is apparent rules breach. The scoring for this, it's very rare or unusual to see scores of exceptional or excellent. So that's the blue or the darker green. Very common to see things that are good, marginal, inadequate. And then again, uncommon to see those red ones that would indicate that there's some bigger challenges to work with. Our consultant gave us this as just a comparison. So this is just a visual of some other ones that they've done in the work that they've done with other municipalities and other jurisdictions. You can see through here that there's four of the 6 happen to have some of those red scores. And there's only 2 that get into some of those green ones, like this one down in the center and the one in the top corner over here. But it's usually a mix of most of those middle scoring throughout the evaluation that's done. So this is where we scored. So in Aurora, we did not have anything red. We ended up with a lot of the common and more common scores from good to the inadequate level. And it indicates that while we don't have any rules breaches that we're having to manage at this time, there's definitely room for improvement. So it's not overly bad, but it definitely means that we're on the right track, looking at procurement and looking at ways we can do better as we move forward. And for each of these different indicators, as you can see around the outside, there's those 8 areas that I mentioned earlier. There's specific recommendations for each one, and those are detailed more in the report So there's a few next steps that we have as we go through procurement modernization, and you're going to be seeing more of this in January when we come back to committee with a proposed procurement policy, which is what our procurement bylaw will be based off of. So we'll be coming forward with that, which will include a lot more tools and a lot better and a lot new way, more modern ways to actually run procurements to the town and give us more flexible bidding options, revised thresholds, and some internal staff processes and protocols that we can actually work with to better run procurement of the town. We are looking to approve a new procurement bylaw in February. The bylaw will be based exactly off the policy that we present and the feedback we get from committee in January. And then we'll start rolling out the new procurement bylaw and policy. And then in June, we'll look to give an update to council to how far we've come and what our next steps are. So thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to take some questions at this time. I also do have our consultant here, Mr. Emanuele, if there's questions as specific to the radar report that council would like to also ask.
Thank you, Ms. Wright Van Kessel. Council, as we typically do, I'd like to put the report and the presentation on the table together. Can I get a motion to receive for information? Councillor Gilliland, Mayor Maracus, questions to the presentation or to the report? Councillor Gallo.
For you to whomever, just in terms of the, I guess, comparison to other municipalities, are these in our area? Can they be identified? Did this consultant do work for other municipalities in York Region or anywhere that's comparable to us?
Ms. Wright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to refer this question to Mr. Emanuele.
Certainly. Mr. Emanuele.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, I can confirm, and I have to be cautious in some of the work we've done is confidential. Not all of it is a matter of public record, but as a matter of public record, a municipalities close that to your location would include Richmond Hill historically, as well as Barrie. So those are two close municipalities. More broadly, our work has been across Canada, including the municipal sector and including more local to the Toronto and Southern Ontario area. We've done similar analyses for federal government bodies, provincial governments across Eastern and Western Canada, Atlantic, right through to the Western Canada, multiplicity of municipal sector organizations through Western Canada, British Columbia, almost all of the Alberta municipal sector in one way or another, the largest 15 or so municipalities, a large number of Ontario municipalities, again, without getting into all details, we can provide more details, but those are some of the closer ones. And they do span both local as well as regional municipalities across Southern Ontario and beyond that as well. And as far as our initial assessment, we would have Aurora in the middle of that analysis as the prior speaker referred to. So you're not outliers, you're pretty much where one would expect at this stage of the process.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Manuel, are any of the, at least the two that you mentioned, Barrie and well, Richmond Hill is probably the best comparator, closest to us at least. Were they of public record or were they not? And if they were, do we have access to their scores?
Yeah.
Mr. Manuel.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. They were, I can confirm, matters of public record, going through a similar process. The degree to which the details of our process were public record, we would have to revert back to confirm. And to the extent that those matters were public record, we will be happy to share those results or seek approval to share more thoroughly.
Councillor Gallo.
I guess if they were similar to us and on a public agenda like this, on an open report, anyone would be able to see them. But if they were, and you could easily have, I suppose I could look myself, but ease of access might be easier if someone who was in the know could send it to us, just out of curiosity where they sat and compare it to where we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, 4 out of 24 areas are good. Our highest score was a D. Oh no, I'm so sorry. A C. So we didn't even get a B. It's pretty sad news if we're in the middle of the pack with respect to other municipalities. Do you have, to either of you, do you know how long you think it would take us to have significant improvement and how much money that would cost?
Perhaps I'll go to Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel first, and then Mr. Manueli afterwards for her
Thank
additional
you.
comment. Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So once we actually have the new policy and bylaw approved, we can start getting underway with actually rolling out the new policy and the bylaw. And it's going to have a lot of changes that are going to address many of the needs that are identified within this report. But part of the actual improvements that we need to implement also include the systems piece. So right now we do have an ERP system, which is out for bid. We're expecting those bids to return next week. And then we're hoping that the ERP system, once we implement that over the next probably about 18 months or so, that will automate some of the workflow within our process too. So there's a number of factors that's going to be involved in this. And it's not just necessarily the policy and the procurement forms, but also the systems, putting those in place as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. With the systems in place, is there going to be a lot of need for training for the staff, or is it going to be pretty self-explanatory?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So as we roll this out, the new policy that we're looking at and that you will see in January does have a lot of changes to it. And there's going to be some more accountability on various department staff as well. So it is going to be a significant change. I would refer to it as more of a transformational change for the town and the work that we're going to do. So there's going to be significant training that we're going to need to do. And we're also going to have to work with people, our clients across the departments, to make sure that they fully understand how these changes in this policy affects them. And it's going to be ongoing training. We need to do training better, as this report indicated, even when we onboard people. So yes, there's going to be training just from doing that piece. But then again, once we have a new system, which we do not know what system that's going to be yet, as it's currently out for bid, there'll be more training once we get to that point too.
Okay, thank you. I'm really pleased that we're going to be doing this. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You to Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel. The report talks about or the delegate for that matter, lack of transparent means for trafficking, the inordinate emphasis of procedural compliance when compared to operational needs and time constraints. So that was one of the key findings. And I interpret that to mean, for example, in the past, staff had recommended that we give delegated authority up to a higher amount, say 100,000. But one of the key recommendations on the report states that we should avoid contract splitting.
Yeah.
So if someone can kind of reconcile those two for me, I'd appreciate it.
Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair, I'll give it a stab, and then maybe I'll ask Mr. Emanuele to fill in. So when we talk about bid splitting, what we're talking about there is there's sometimes people may have a tendency to split bids to be able to do things within lower thresholds because they see it as being easier. Whereas, doing a full open procurement can take a longer amount of time. So that's something that should not be encouraged at any time. And it's something that's not good procurement practice. But part of that is also having some of the analytical capabilities on hand to be able to do that analysis as well, to look back at the work that we've done and review and identify where there's areas, well, maybe we could actually consolidate. And that might not necessarily be bid splitting, but it might be a matter of two departments are using similar services and we can get better value for money if we combine those procurements. I'm not sure if Mr. Manueli would like to add a little bit to that or speak to the first part of your question.
Mr. Manueli?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. In fact, there is a correlation between limiting delegations and increasing the risk of contract splitting, because often what happens is because of the need for expedience, because of operational requirements, staff will evade out of necessity seeking approvals and artificially split up a contract that should be a larger contract just to get going and meet the immediate need. And then that puts us at risk of breaching our open tendering obligations, because then there's follow-up work that has to go to the same contractor. And so if we artificially limit delegation authority, we limit the maneuverability of staff to respond to operational needs. So the two are very much interrelated. And that's why part of our recommendations, having heard loud and clear from the focus groups, and we heard from all the different departments and heard their feedback, was a need for more agility at the operational level. And so that is very directly tied to the level of delegated authority you give in order to act expeditiously to meet operational needs, obviously within balance, but it's very important to find the right balance in giving delegated authority.
Thank you. Councillor Kim?
Thank you. And, just a comment or an observation is that I always find in an evaluation system, whether it's personal evaluation or an institutional evaluation, when there's categories like exceptional or excellent are rarely used. I wonder why it's even there. Perhaps it's true that all corporate clients may not have that level of excellence in this subject matter. And another comment would be that would it surprise us that all the clients potentially are inadequate or unsatisfactory, because it's kind of with respect, a little bit self-serving. If we were exceptional, we wouldn't need the services of an external consultant. But that said, I'm grateful for any support that our consultant could provide us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Before I go to Councillor Gallo or Councillor Gardner for the second time, I'll go to Councillor Gilliland for the first time.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. Just quick comments. I just want to say that I am so happy to see the updates of this report. This is a big beast that you guys are undertaking. I know that we had spoke rather early on when you were brought on in town of Aurora, and I'm just so excited to see what the outcome is. It's long overdue. And I'm really excited to hear that we'll be focusing on some more of the life cycle approach as well, on some of the procurement as well. So thanks so much for providing us. Look forward to what we will have in store for us to make these improvements. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Councillor Gallo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just two questions or comments. When we look at our ratings, is it fair to say that some of them are more important than others, and the rating to them is more significant? Like some of the E's, integrity indicator number 2, ensure a clear link to code of conduct. The one that we just spoke to, open competitive requirements. It also speaks to better planning and accountability, because I guess to what Mr. Manueli was saying, if we plan better, then we can bulk together projects to be more competitive. It's not, I guess it's not always there's something urgent, we need to do it right away. Do we analyze why that thing became so urgent? If it was planned better, it wouldn't have been so urgent, and we could follow a better process. I guess my question is, how do we address those items? Is it training that we have to plan better our projects, or how do we address those issues?
you prefer Mr. Manueli or Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel weigh in on that? Councilor Geller, would you prefer to?
Whoever has the answer, it doesn't matter to me.
Well, I'll start off with Mr. Manueli then.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I think the question has very much seized in on the important aspect of prioritization. And so when you look at those 8 target areas, it's the first of institutional governance that, if you get right, creates a positive ripple effect around the circle of the analysis. And if you don't get that institutional governance piece right, then the ripple effect of non-compliance or marginal results also carries all the way around the clock, so to speak. So it's very much from prioritization, achieving the appropriate accountability controls. So delegation is very important to balance oversight and accountability. The integrity indicators of dealing with rules like conflicts and so forth, as well as the open competition requirements of calibrating appropriately to meet your open tendering duties, while also managing a more immediate operational needs at lower value dollar contracts. So all of these are cornerstones that then manifest themselves in more detail and more granular level, from institutional governance to project governance to selecting the right tendering formats. And that's when implementation comes in, the right tools, the right policies, the right procedures. And then absolutely at the end of that would be then training on the tools. Having a suite of updated policies, procedures, and templates takes you part way there, but then the staff know-how to operationalize is important. So for example, when we modernized the City of Barrie's efforts, each program area received 2 days training, each business unit from me directly as part of that modernization exercise. And the more you invest in training, the more then that helps internal staff to deal with their day-to-day challenges. And that's part of where we add value, in that our objective is to help achieve self-sufficiency from our municipal clients. And yes, many aren't up the curve yet. And unfortunately, if you look at the historic Bellamy report, and 15 years later, Associate Chief Justice Morocco's Collingwood report on the municipal sector in the public inquiry of just last year, the Associate Chief Justice Morocco confirmed what Bellamy found 15 years prior, which is that there are systemic challenges within the municipal sector in Ontario. And that's what we strive to help achieve, is rectification of those challenges to help promote better self-sufficiency ultimately. And it starts at institutional governance at that level.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Manueli.
If I may, Councilor Gallo, I just want to give Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel
sure.
an opportunity, just see if she wanted to add anything further, and then I'll come right back to you.
Sure.
Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So part of this whole project, the first piece is going to be that procurement policy, and that procurement policy and the processes and the protocols we put in place are going to help a lot with that first part, the institutional governance. And a lot of the items that are in that institutional governance are policy work. And some of the other pieces are going to follow along later. It's just a matter of making sure that we have a plan to address all these areas.
Thank you. Councilor Gallo.
You to Mr. Manueli. After doing all this, the report that was just before us that I had spoken about, I always pay attention to it, because to me, when we have a long list of single source, or when that report comes back to us and there's a long list of items that are on there, to me, it raises some flags, and I always question them. Am I to believe that going through this process and tightening up the whole process, or even revamping the whole process, that in the future those types of things they're not going to disappear? Clearly, there's going to be instances where we have to do them, but there'll be less frequent of that type of activity.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that is one of the objectives, is through more advanced planning and proactivity, then we'll, while not eliminating, significantly reduce the number of incidents where operational necessity drives a direct award where it should have been put to tender. And in fact, just by way of one example, that did mean an exceptional or excellent rating was the similar initiatives over 10 years ago with the University of Toronto. Their sole source rate was over 50% for their research related contracts, because the research scientists would get their funding and then would have fatigue and be delayed and wouldn't be able to then go through open tendering appropriately to actually secure the research equipment they needed, which put the funding in peril, because that funding was contingent on compliance with open tendering norms. by updating their policies, procedures, and also bringing in more flexible tendering formats, more suited to technological purchases. For example, we were able to help U of T reduce their sole source rate to almost zero. And they won a national award because of their efforts, National Business Award with the Cobble Association. So the upper tier ratings do exist. They are there, they are achievable. They're not just aspirational, but there is effort that's required to shore up the minimum standards to meet them and then to excel them. And that's perfectly within the realm of possibility for any public entity, in my view.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. Councillor Gallup.
Great, thank you. That was it. I'm glad we're doing this. I think it's clearly well needed. There's some room for improvement, and that's nothing wrong with that. I think we're on the right track. So thank you.
Councillor Gardner for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm sorry, I was remiss in not thanking you, Mr. Emanuele, and also Ms. Wright Van Kessel. This is a beast and needs to be tamed. And this is an excellent report that gives us the roadmap. I'm always interested in the lowest compliant bid. And as John Glenn said, that he was a little concerned when he was hurtling through space, knowing that he was on the lowest compliant shuttle. So, and we've had this experience before with taking lowest compliant and getting into trouble. I won't mention some of the examples, but I'd like to hear what both of you say on this issue. Through you, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can start with that one. So just to give you a little bit of a teaser as to what is to come before you in January, but part of what our procurement law office has recommended is more flexible procurement templates and bid formats. And that gives us more options for actually doing procurement so that we're not in a situation where we're always taking that lowest compliant bid. So there's more opportunities for setting up rosters, doing pre-qualifications, and looking at ways of being more effective in the way we do procurement as we move forward.
Thank you. And I will mention one thing because we have nicknamed it in this council chamber, the Brookland fiasco. And that was a terrible project on so many levels. Taking the lowest compliant bid from actually a company that wasn't familiar with culverts, which was half the project. So yes, I look forward to anything that you can do to improve that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Any further comments or questions, Council? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Next up is item 9.2, the fence bylaw exemption request for 32 Knowles Crescent. Would somebody like to move the staff recommendation? Councillor Gardner?
Mr. Chair, I would like to move the alternate with a little change in the wording.
Well, actually, we had two members of council that were willing to move the staff recommendation. So perhaps we'll start there, and if perhaps I'll give you the floor first. And if they wish to sway their thoughts that they want to withdraw that motion, then so be it.
Thank you. I thought I was one of the movers. Thank you.
Oh, well, I asked if anyone wanted to put the staff recommendation on the floor. And Councillor Gilliland and Councillor Humphreys moved that. But Councillor Gardner, you have the floor.
Thank you. This fence has caused a lot of problems in the neighborhood. I was contacted by a few residents, not the person who belongs to the fence, but we haven't done the final grading. This is the back fence. This would be the backyard fence facing east. And it has, behind there is, I believe, Seton, and the elevation is higher. So it was suggested to me by staff that there should be a final grading inspection. And then we can see how so we really know what we're working with, because we don't have that information yet. And then we could decide whether a variance was in order. So if this motion fails, I would like to move that alternative, that we wait to decide on this until we have the final grading inspection. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Any further comments or questions? Seeing that, oh, Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair, to Ms. Van Leeuwen. By passing the staff recommendation today, does that mean that if the homeowner had decided to finish the grading, that they could not come back and ask for a different variance based on a different kind of grading? Or is that just kind of repeating itself and case closed?
Ms. Van Leeuwen.
Through you, Mr. Chair, they could return with a further exemption request. I think mainly it's the side yards and front yard grading that has not yet been complete. And this application was initiated by the property owner.
Okay.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. So, I mean, I understand that the grading hasn't been done as of yet, but just, you know, judging by council and how hopefully, I don't know how the rest of my council members feel, but I believe that I'm in support of the recommendation based on the fact that we have a bylaw in place specifically for these reasons. So if it was still non-compliant after grading, then they'd still have to come back and ask for an exemption. So, I mean, at this point, I feel that, you know, it is what it is. And if it's still a non-compliance, then you would still need to do an inspection after the fact, because after grading, it would be an automatic inspection, would it not?
Ms. Van Leeuwen.
Through you, Mr. Mayor or Mr. Chair. So engineering will do the final grading inspections, and then by law will do a follow-up inspection once that work is complete.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. So are you satisfied with the recommendation? I know that Councillor Gardner had suggested that staff had recommended to wait until final grading. So is that something that staff is wanting to recommend as an amendment here, just based on what Councillor Gardner had said, maybe some offline conversations, or are we satisfied, staff satisfied as to what's recommended and presented today?
Ms. Van Leeuwen.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, this is staff's recommendation that we don't approve the variance.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yeah, you know, reading the staff report and understanding, you know, setting precedents and everything else, I do have concerns. We've had fencing issues in the past. And I think for me, I would like to stay close to this staff recommendation. If the owner comes back, he, as we heard a moment ago, they're free to come back and delegate. But at this point, you know, does set precedence, and I would prefer that we move forward as per the recommendation, and the owner can always come back separately to address concerns once all the grading is completed. Thanks. This is my comments.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Any further comments or questions? Councillor Gardner, is that your hand up for further questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't discuss this with Ms. Van Leeuwen. I discussed it with the planning department, planning building. But I didn't realize that the grading at the rear yard was already completed. I'm correct on that, Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Ray is on this Zoom call, and since he's been doing the inspections, I may ask him to respond to that question. Mr. Ray?
Welcome.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Gardner, at this time, it's my understanding that the grading for the entire property has not been signed off. And it's a one size kind of fits all approach. So it's not signed off in part. A final grading inspection must be completed in order to have all of it signed off.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. That didn't help me. Just making me more confused. Okay, I think, I guess as has been said, especially as this fence was constructed, I guess, without permission for a variance, then I would agree with the staff report.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. See no further questions. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Next up is 9.3, our favorite, the pending list. Can I get would somebody like to move the staff recommendation? Councillor Gillen, Councillor Humphreys. Any comments or questions with regards to the pending list review? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. 9.4, tree removal permit application, 144 Temperance Street. Can I get a motion to move the staff recommendation? See no movers. Would somebody like to move an alternative, or for now, just that the report be received? Which would it be, Councillor Humphreys? Yeah, moved by Councillor Humphreys, seconded by Councillor Kim, that the motion be received at this time. Comments or questions with regards to the report? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. Actually, I was okay with the tree removal because I saw the trees that are there, and they're older, and they're not very robust, although the consultant said they were in good condition. And I don't know if I have the place here to say this, the right, but to me, my main concern was all of the hard surfaces that were going in around this pool. I know it's not directly an issue, but with flooding and climate change, is this something that we could look at? Is this in our purview to do this?
Through you to either Mr. Downey, I guess, would be.
I don't think.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Actually, it has more to do with planning. We are here to figure out whether or not we want to cut 5 trees down in order to permit a pool. So it actually will be part of the pool application.
Councillor Gardner.
So, but from the report, the pool, it's going to be a lot of things besides a pool. If it was, I don't know if it's the pool, it seems to me the pool is the problem with the roots of the trees. But with respect to all of the other hard surfaces that are going on around the pools, are they going to be affecting the tree roots as well?
Mr. Downey.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I apologize. So my purview stops with the trees. So I've been asked to determine whether or not the trees should or should not be removed, and we went through the process in accordance with the tree removal bylaw. With regards to what is going in place of those trees is not within our purview, and that's why I recommended perhaps we talk to planning. I don't know if there is any restrictions with regards to what can be placed in that backyard once the trees are removed. But as I said, once again, that's beyond what we are trying to discuss here.
Mr. Waters, would you like to weigh in?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd have to go back and check the zoning bylaw and see if there's any minimum open space requirements for a rear yard or not. I can't answer that question at the moment. I'd have to go back and check the bylaw.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. And from the, I think it's attachment 4, the pool actually is quite a small part of this project. Anyway, Could somebody tell me what caliper means? In the report, it says that these trees are going to be replaced with caliper trees.
Mr. Downey.
So through you, Mr. Chair, caliper relates to size. So when we talk about caliper trees, we talk about trees of a size. So generally, when they are very small, they're whips, and when they grow up, they're saplings, and then when they grow up even larger than that, then they become caliper trees. So these will be larger than normal trees.
So 6 to 8 foot trees?
Yeah, absolutely. But it would all depend on the type of tree. So you
Right.
generally measure coniferous trees by height, and you normally measure deciduous trees by caliper. So these will be substantial trees being put back in the environment.
Thank you, Mr. Councilor Gardner.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all.
Councilor Gilliland.
Thank you. Councilor Gardner asked one of the questions, but the mature trees and the replanting. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Downey. I am pleased to see that they have included quite a few nice deciduous plantings like the beech and the Incredibles and such. And it'd be just kind of interesting to know, the comparator with the carbon capture. I don't really have an issue too much with, the trees in question in this particular instance, but I was just interested in knowing if that's just something that you are logging as we are kind of moving forward with, the new climate adaptation plan that we're working on, and recently with the forest management report. Is that something that you had considered when you were looking at these plans with a tree replacement?
Mr. Downey.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, it isn't something we were looking at. It is something that council has asked us to consider as part of our compensation. However, that has not been, we have not got to a point where we are comfortable moving forward with a compensation based on carbon. As you know, the compensation policy right now deals with replacement of caliper trees. And the value of those trees. And that's why we had mentioned with regards to the compensation policy, $10,200 was identified as what we had identified as the compensation required for the removal of these trees. But that was not related to the carbon capture that those trees created.
Councilor Gilliland.
Thank you. Well, I guess I wish I had gotten a different answer. I thought that was maybe something that we were working towards by just some sort of at least an estimated formula. So it helps us make decisions knowing that when we are doing this replacement, it does look like a good plan. Personally, for me, looking at the selection of the shrubs and the size and the caliber as indicated, it does offer a lot of carbon capture, I would suggest. But again, I would like to have that formula in front of me to kind of make me feel comfortable making those decisions as well. So I would hope staff would start to begin to feel more comfortable, at least include something into that nature of how we can make those decisions moving forward, because this is not going to be an isolated decision. And I think that's what we're all trying to achieve. As far as what I see on the report right now, I'm okay with the plan that's being presented before us for those 5 trees, because I am interested and satisfied with the tree selections and the canopy that it will create, and the carbon capture and the size and the caliber makes me feel more comfortable knowing that they'll be rather mature trees, and they are keeping the existing sugar maples that are there, which is great. So I do appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Gilliland. Just to remind council, the only motion on the floor is to receive. We will need to provide direction before this item is completed. Councilor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in terms of, this did come to HAC for preview, and I mean, the comments were only focused on the trees. There was no other, from a heritage perspective, landscape perspective. And, it was tough for the committee because, the report indicated the trees were healthy, and it will change the view. They're tall trees, although they're not totally, robust, like the pines in the back, the lime trees that are sort of obstructing the area for where the pool, they would like to build their pool. But one of the comments was, as Councilor Gilliland mentioned, the tree compensation policy, that they were going to be replaced. There was a little bit of a concern about a couple of the trees, I believe in the front, that I guess, again, the majority of the trees other than one recommends are all healthy, good trees. Anyway, it's a call, I think, of council to decide if the resident would like, if we'd like to help the residents build a pool or not, as long as we believe the compensation policy. I'm still thinking, the staff report is asking us to approve. I wanted to hear some comments around the table before, if we change this from receive to approve. Again, it was a difficult conversation here, just the big trees are going to be gone. But I do appreciate the effort around the compensation of the replacement of the trees at this point. So I'm starting to lean towards a little bit of moving forward to allow the build for this resident in terms of the plan that staff has put before us here. So I'd like to hear more comments, or if anyone is interested in changing back to the staff recommendation. But I'll leave it for now.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Gardner, before I go to you, is there anybody else for the first time? Councillor Gardner, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm looking at the photo of the trees. I do have trouble proving, I do have trouble that trees would come down that are adding to the skyline of a neighbor and the neighborhood. But I think the comments of Councillor Gilland, I think if we need to, when we look at these things, we need to look at will the trees that are planted improve the environmental capacity and the carbon capture. So I don't know how we're going to proceed with this in the future, but to me, this is just an incomplete story. Through Mr. Chair to Mr. Downey, there's a lot of attachments. I thought I saw the list of trees that were going to be planted, the new trees. Are they all native species?
Mr. Downey.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, off the top of my head, I can't tell you whether they're all native species. As they say, that the primary focus of this report is for the tree removal as opposed to what is being put in replacement. The staff do not have the authority to determine whether or not the trees are removed or not. Only council has that. With regards to any replacements, that's staff can then get involved with regards to the types of replacements and the compensation policy. That's within our purview. So I'm sorry, but I can't tell you whether or not they, with the tree list right now, whether or not its majority of that is native or not. I can tell you that they have met or we're fairly comfortable that they will meet the compensation required with the removal of the 5 spruce.
Thank you. In light of everything, I would say that to approve for just information is the correct motion at the moment. It does say that the concept plan is basically just a concept. So I think it could come back to council when they can tell us exactly what they want to plant here. Just to say that the trees can come down and not know what exactly the plan is. Even though it meets the compensation, it doesn't mean that it meets environmental requirements to allow the trees to come down. That was very unclear. I'm sorry, but if we're going to allow trees to come down, we need to know what's going to go up in their place. And at this point, the main concern would be environmental and how they contribute to improve the environment. And if we could, carbon capture and shade and all the rest of it. Thanks. Oh, and also the roots. It's the roots that keep the soil in place and absorb the water. So I think we need to start looking at these things in a different way. Thank you.
Mayor Maracus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think we all look at this from the same perspective that we don't want to see older trees removed wherever we can save them. Obviously, we want to do as much as we can to make sure that we protect them, preserve them within areas that are historic within our town. But ultimately, I think what it comes down to this is that we have to ask ourselves, are we basically saying that we will never allow a resident on this property to ever build a pool? That's what we got to ask ourselves. And so if there is a proper replacement plan in place, it does meet our guidelines, our policy. If as Councillor Gilliland mentioned, if it's going to meet the requirements of what we would like to see from an environmental perspective, then maybe it's something that we need to look at approving. And Councillor Humphreys, I understand that the conversation was difficult at HAC, but it essentially was recommended from HAC. The arborist is recommending this, staff is recommending this. So I'm okay with moving forward with this. But also I'm very interested to see if we're going to have the same conversation in regards to hardscapes when we talk about 74 Center Street. Because if we remember, that whole backyard was a hardscape. So it'll be very interesting when that conversation comes back.
Thank you, Mayor Maracas. Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. I guess just a quick comment from the report. I do see all the selected trees that were in place on the landscape design. So I'm not so sure where that confusion was. Mr. Chair, to Mr. Downey, I am looking at the report with the selected tree types that has been provided by the arborist. Is that not correct?
Mr. Downey.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, they have provided a tree list. I guess where I'm trying to help is the application is for the removal of the trees. It is not within the purview at this point of the Heritage Committee to determine whether or not they fulfill the tree compensation requirements. That will that's within the purview of staff. So I'm trying to help with regards to focusing the attention on whether council is comfortable with the removal of the trees rather than whether they're comfortable with the types of trees that are being replaced.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarity. I do think it's important to have a plan in place so you know what that compensation looks like. You certainly wouldn't want people to inadvertently, throw in some saplings or trees that don't match, or a Manitoba maple for that matter. So I think it is important to see what that selection is. And some of, my decision making tonight is by, looking at the plan that's before me. And I do think it's a good plan. I do think it offers great landscape for both the neighbors. What I see here with the Pyramidal Beach, they're very high, they're bushy, they will offer some carbon capture. I kind of like that idea. I think it'll add value to the neighborhood. And looking at the report from staff and the arborist recommendation and HAC saying that they're okay with that also lends to this decision as well. So if I may, I would like to put the original staff recommendation on the floor of both receive and to allow the removal of those trees. If the mover and
Councillor
seconder.
Gilliland, I have Councillor Humphreys already listed as a speaker, but I'll come back to you after she's done if you'd still like to move the motion at that time.
Sure.
Anything further?
Nope. Thanks.
Councillor Humphreys.
Mr. Chair, I was actually going to do exactly what Councillor Gilliland was proposing. In terms of moving forward, the discussion, and I think, have to come back to the discussion at HAC. And we had to, as Mr. Downey mentioned, we have to look at this from a tree perspective and not compensation perspective, because that was what we were discussing around the table. So it was difficult to keep that discussion separate. But we ultimately did say that, the resident would like to enjoy their property, and that there was indication that the resident would in fact do replacement of trees, and also had a plan on how they would take care of them as they would move forward during their construction, after construction. And I think there's been mention of a 2-year a 2-year treatment on those trees to make sure that they survived throughout the new construction and so on. So I'm okay through Mr. Mayor, unless there's any other speakers to change. I think I moved it earlier to receive, to go back to receive and complete the staff recommendation moving forward. If I think I moved it right. So I'd like to propose that. And if the seconders.
I did offer it to Councillor Gilliland first. However, it would be an
Oh, yeah.
amendment if she brought it forward. But if the mover and seconder want to do it as a friendly amendment, then that's fine.
I'm okay.
That's fine.
Um,
I wanted to just finish.
So Councillor Humphreys.
Yeah, I
that's
just like to-
fine. As the mover of the original motion, you can put the second one on the floor. The seconder agrees.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Just as to finalize this, I originally, when we brought this forward this evening, I did want to hear some conversation around the table from my peers. It was important to hear that. Again, I appreciate the courtesy of having this come to HAC. It was a tough discussion at HAC. You know, we're always trying to, everyone's trying to preserve. But then there's sometimes we have to take a look at this. And if you look at those trees, there's a grouping, they're very high and they're very spindly at the bottom part. They're a little bit at the top. They're very spindly. So comes a point in time, sometimes the replacement in those ones on the back in particular that are coming out are the replacement, I think, will be much a fuller and a lovely tree line eventually as they move forward. So thank you. I just wanted to state that.
Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I have a point of clarification, if that's possible, because I'm a little confused with what's being said and what's in the report.
Councillor Gardner, if it's quick for clarification, that's fine. But if it's a full question, you've already spoken twice, and you'll have another opportunity to speak to this item at the next council meeting. So it's a quick point of clarification. I'll allow it. But
no, it is a point of clarification, because on page 3 of 5 of the report, it says, as the landscape design pool consultants work through more detailed plans, the costs and plant material sizes will be determined. So this is just a concept plan. We don't know what's going in there, according to the report.
Mr. Downey, would you like to provide some clarification to that point?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so I appreciate this. The main focus of this report is the removal of the trees. The discussion with regards to what is being put in compensation of the removal of those trees is yet to be finally determined. We have determined that there needs to be $10,200 worth of compensation planting put in. And that will be the requirement of the homeowner. If, for instance, they only put in $8,000 worth of planting, we would then be asking them for a check for the remainder. It's the compensation related to this development is outside of the direction or the discussion that we are trying to obtain through council with regards to the removal of the trees. Because if council decides not to have the trees removed, compensation is of no issue. The trees will not be removed, and there will be no planting taking place on the property. So we're trying to make sure that we separate the two issues. However, the applicant did provide at least a concept plan of what they would like to put in place of the removal, and so staff were happy to take a look at that. Certainly from a compensation lens to find out whether or not they were within the ballpark of being able to meet those compensation requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. Members of council, anybody else have any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the staff recommendation, which was to receive the report and allow for the tree removal permit application to be approved. Opposed? That motion carries. Next up, 9.5, the application to remove the holding provisions on the Gillam Residence Partnership property 15520 Young Street. Would somebody like to move the staff recommendation? Mayor Maracus, is there a seconder? Councillor Kim, any comments or questions to the item? Mayor Maracus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to add a comment. You touched upon it. It's been a long time coming, watching this property finally get redeveloped. And I think the residents are happy that this is finally coming to fruition. And I think council's happy, staff are happy, everyone's happy, because it's been a long process to get to a point that something's actually going to happen here. And when you look at the renderings of what's being proposed, I think it's going to be a very beautiful addition to what would be considered an extension of our downtown core.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. Agree with your comments, Mr. Mayor. I'd like some information though from planning, perhaps. This whole site is in floodplain. So I think from what I can see from the drawings that the addition is going to be in the rear of the building.
Is there a question there, Councillor Gardner?
Am I correct that the addition is going to be in the rear of the building?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Chair. There really is no addition. What the applicant is doing is they're ripping up the concrete in the rear because back in the day, the concrete that was poured there for parking was poured without any permitting. And it was encroaching into the creek's buffer. So what they're doing is they are removing the concrete. They're greening the rear yard, which will result in a reduction of the floodplain. So currently the site is approximately probably 3/4 or more within the floodplain. So this work to the rear yard will reduce the flood line, and the Conservation Authority is going to redraw the flood line based on the work in the rear yard of the property.
Councillor Gardner?
They're going to put the flood line closer to the creek? Is that what you're saying?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that's correct. The flood line which is very close to Yonge Street at the moment, will be moved to the west, and probably, I haven't seen the final flood line mapping, but I suspect it will, the actual building will be removed for the most part.
And this work will be done by the Conservation Authority?
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, it's being done by the applicant, but it's on the but the approval has been issued by the Conservation Authority for the work in the rear yard.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner?
I'm finding this very difficult to understand I'm finding this very difficult to understand. We're supposed to be increasing our floodplain lines, not decreasing them. It may be that because of the plantings, this can be done. I've never heard of anything like this, but I'm certainly not an expert. So I'll speak with the Conservation Authority before the next meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Last item on the list, 9.6, application for site plan approval, the Horseshoe Properties, 130 Industrial Parkway North. Would somebody like to move the staff recommendation? Mayor Maracus, is there a seconder? Councillor Gallo. Comments or questions to this item? Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. I just had a quick question through Mr. Chair to Mr. Downey. I read in the report somewhere that they are retaining a number of trees that are lining the back, which is great, but I didn't really quite understand what they were actually taking down in order to build the facility. I tried to Google Maps to kind of see. It kind of looked like it was all pretty low-lying shrubs, or really nothing much there of like a forest of sorts. And I was wondering if you could just kind of provide me a little clarity.
Did you mean Mr. Waters?
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The site is primarily vacant at the moment. The trees that are backing on to the rail line are proposed to be maintained. If you look at the site plan, which is one of the attachments, you'll see where the phase 1 and phase 2 buildings are. We have not identified any trees to be removed or any any shrubbery to be preserved on this site because it's primarily vacant.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. That's kind of what I thought, but I wanted to ask because I was a little confused about that. I do see that you have a lot of your box ticked as far as the LCRA, and everybody's due diligence has a plan in motion. So I don't have any more questions at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we had resident come from Birch Court. This most or a good portion of Industrial Parkway is bordering on Walton and Walton Drive. So, I mean, I don't know first of all, what are we going to do to protect the residents from the noise during construction? And then just what are we going to do to protect them, period? It looks to me like there's no entrance at the back of the building. I think the trucks all come in through the front. Is that correct? Am I reading that correctly?
Mr. Waters.
Through Mr. Chair, that is correct. Yes, they'll use the existing entrance off of Industrial Parkway.
Thank you. And I didn't realize that this was, I also Googled the site. I didn't realize this was completely vacant. So all of these cars, this parking area is now going to be also bordering some of the residents on Walton. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I have to vote against this. I'm going to vote in favor of trying to protect the residents on the Walton strip. And I would like, it's not only Walton, there are other residences there in that area. My suggestion would be that they don't, the existing office, and my suggestion would be that the proposed warehouse be in the same line with the existing warehouse. At least the residents have moved in or have accepted that that building that close to the property line. But this is going to be a big change, and I don't know if it would cause much hardship to make that building a little bit smaller and a little bit more farther removed from the residents. I just like, well, I'd like to hear what the rest of council thinks, but I certainly can't approve it the way it is just because of the existing residents.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Cal.
You, through you to Mr. Waters. This is an addition to their existing building, and if we look at the adjoining buildings to the north, 138, 144, and 150, they all butt up against the westerly property line along the railway and subsequently Walton Drive and the back of those homes, right?
Mr. Waters.
You, Mr. Chair, yes, if you go to the air photo, you can actually see the footprints of the buildings on the west side of Industrial Parkway, and the councillor is quite correct. As you get further north, you get closer to the rail line, and also as you get further south as well. 110, I believe, is closer to the GO rail line to the west.
So, I mean, I don't have a problem with this in terms of it being close to, there's Walton in the back of those homes. There's already a precedent of numerous other buildings that are doing the exact same thing. In fact, I think this has even a buffer that those other ones don't have. It appears to have quite a bit of a buffer that those ones don't have. Those parking lot is right up against the their rear or their westerly property line. So I'm quite fine with this project.
you, Councillor Gallo. Mayor Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to Mr. Waters. Mr. Waters, this conforms to our OP. It also conforms to our zoning bylaw. Is that correct?
Mr. Waters.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Thank you. So this is just a site plan?
Mr. Waters, sorry.
Sorry, Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that's correct. It's for two phases, expansion in 2 phases of the existing use.
Thank you. That's all.
Councillor Gardner, is your hand up for a second time?
Yes.
Anybody else for the first time? Seeing none. Councillor Gardner, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Gallo, for all of that extra information. I obviously didn't do my complete work on this. The residents are going to be upset. But if this conforms to our zoning bylaw, then so be it. Through you to Mr. Waters, is there going to be any construction? Is there going to be any noise mitigation, dust mitigation, any kind of mitigation while they build this?
Mr. Waters.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, there will be a construction management plan that has been submitted along with the site plan, which will identify dust control and any noise mitigation that's required. And of course, we have the town's bylaw regarding construction as well.
Mm-hmm. And what about a vibration study?
Mr. Waters.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we don't typically ask for vibration studies for this type of development. There's no excavation for a basement, is my understanding. It's at grade.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Gilliland.
You through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Waters, just to clarify, I think I read somewhere in the report, apologies, I've been trying to find it, but does it not have existing trees that are lined at the very back of the property that backs onto the railroad?
Mr. Waters.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. I believe there's thick vegetation that buffers the west side of the east side of the GO rail line, and I think there's also vegetation on the other side as well, where the homes are. So yes, your answer is correct.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. That's what I thought. So I understand Councillor Gardner's concern. Although they are keeping the current vegetation that's very mature there, so that won't be changing. I do like the fact that they have a plan. I think there was like 81 different trees and shrubs that were being planted, and I was very impressed again with the site plan and what they had chose with the lindens and the oaks and the maples, some spireas. So I thought it was a pretty extensive landscape plan that they were bringing forward with some pretty decent species. So I was really happy to see that they were trying to do that. So I'll be interested what comes back with all the other things and requirements that are asked by the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority and move from there. But other than that, I'm happy with what I see today. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Gilliland. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are done with those items. Next up, notices of motion. With the amendment to the agenda this evening, we have 2. We will deal with them at the next council meeting. We have no regional report. New business. May I start with you, Mayor Maracus? None. Councillor Gardner, any new business?
Could you come back to me, please?
Certainly. Councillor Gallo? Councillor Kim? Councillor Humphries? Councillor Gilliland?
Yes, thank you. Just a couple things. Obviously, we had a delegate tonight about the train whistles, and I've had some questions to staff. So I guess through Mr. Chair to Mr. Nadarozny, is there any way that staff could maybe look into kind of some of the changes that might have occurred between, December 2019 and, other municipalities and what they've done with the cessation success? I think Barrie, Markham and Bolton might be 3. And just if there's other new information that maybe we haven't really received since then, that might actually change the liability or what our concerns were. Is there any way we could have staff maybe give us a little bit of an update?
Before I go to Mr. Nadarozny, Councilor Gillen, I believe in the past, sometimes when we've had delegations, we've asked the matter be referred back to staff. And then staff would come forward with a report, perhaps bring the same report we've had in the past with any update or something like that. But I know we've done that in the past, but I'll let Mr. Nadarozny speak.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I think staff at this case would take whatever direction from council. This has been something that's been visited by council a few times. And so it wouldn't be something like that we would just throw on the table as a result of one delegation without some direction from council.
Okay, so and as far as the chair's recommendation, thank you for that. So if I could refer back to staff, the comments of the delegation to get a report back based on some of the changes that were made and success of the Barrie, Markham and Bolton locations, and see if there's new information for council to learn.
If that's the will of council, I'm happy to put that on the floor. Do I have a seconder to refer back to staff? Councilor Humphreys. So the motion on the floor is to refer to staff the comments of the delegate and ask for a report back with regards to the train cessation whistle. All those in favor? Opposed? None? Carried. Any further new business?
I do actually, if you don't mind.
I don't mind. It's part of the agenda.
Thank you. It just kind of dawned me through Mr. Chair to Mr. Downey, just the comment about the carbon capture. I was a little surprised and the fact that the department's not comfortable, I guess, utilizing some sort of formula. So I'm just curious as to what those next steps are to try and at least adopt some of that methodology moving forward.
Through you to Mr. Downey.
So thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. With regards to carbon capture, as you know, we've had discussions with regards to carbon capture, and it's extremely difficult to determine the level of carbon capture with trees, particularly within compensation. We have no objection trying to put some metric with regards to that. The question, however, was whether or not we were imposing that metric on this particular development, and my answer was no, we were not. We have not got to a point where carbon capture is a metric that we're using within the compensation policy. If council would like us to consider that, I believe I've made some presentation previously to council with regards to that. And as you know, it's extremely difficult to identify a level of carbon capture and then tie that to a compensation policy. I think that what we had discussed previously was that we were going to try to make sure that the trees that we were dealing with from a compensation perspective were a larger caliper, which we were imposing upon this particular development, or we were happy to approve on this particular development. So we know that that's going to have a higher level of carbon capture. We were looking at trees that were going to have a higher level of carbon capture. However, that wasn't one of the determining factors of whether or not we approve that tree or not. And so we use it as I'll use it as a lens, but not a requirement with regards to carbon capture when we're looking at compensation or approval of a particular landscape plan.
Councilor Gillen.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments from staff, and I appreciate that you're willing to look at it as a lens. Perhaps there's some more work to do, and maybe we'll get more information through their climate adaptation policy that we're about to review. I guess that's going to be coming. So appreciate that. No further questions.
Councilor Gardner, coming back to you for new business. You're on mute, Councilor Gardner.
So I am. No, I have no new business. Thank you.
Moving on to public service announcements. Can we start with you, Councilor Gardner? Any public service announcements?
Yes, thank you. Tomorrow, well, I'd just like to wish all of the Jewish members of Aurora a very happy Hanukkah. And there will be a menorah, or as we call it, Hanukkah lighting at Town Hall tomorrow at 6 o'clock. I believe that's correct, Mr. Mayor. 6 o'clock is the time. And apparently there's also going to be food. So the traditional food at this time of year are latkes, potato pancakes, and jelly donuts. So That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gardner. Councilor Gallo, public service announcements. Councilor Gilliland.
Thank you. There's lots of stuff going on in December. I'm sure that a few of us will name a few. So only one that I really wanted to bring up was Deck the Halls tour. It's kind of one of my favorite things that we do here. I love the lights. I'm glad to see the snows on the ground and people's lights around their homes. And it'll be running from Friday, December 10th to December 19th from 5 to 9 p.m. I'm really looking forward to see all the pretty lights. Anyways, that's what I've got to say today. Thanks.
Councilor Humphreys.
There's lots, I'm sure the mayor and everyone will have lots to say. Exactly. Councilor Gilliland mentioned, but just one thing, it's a bit of a highlight, and I heard today from staff and the mayor publicized that the boardwalk new trail is open on Yonge Street. I'm so excited about that. It looks amazing, and so happy that we'll be able to use that, and very excited. And I also just wanted to say, I know we all had an amazing time at this Santa Parade. It was just incredible, the turnout. I just wanted to thank the BIA for their great work at Maples Alley. The tree that they put up, and I have to do something very special for staff because they saved the day. The BIA was working really hard to get that tree put up, and one of the suppliers kind of didn't, show up. So Sarah Tankamp and Al Downey and Mr. Downey and team came out, and they more than helped. They secured a safe, large tree. They were there to make sure everything went really well, and it was truly in the Christmas spirit. Everyone was really thrilled. The BIA can't thank the town enough for all their support and help. And I just want to say, staff, you guys are rock stars. Thank you so much.
Councilor Kim.
Say thank you to staff and Shelley Ware and her whole team for setting up the Santa Parade. Those of us who were there, we had a great time, and I was very surprised to see some acquaintances from other municipalities come to Aurora, because we were, I think, one of the few, if not the only municipality that had a Santa Parade. So thank you to staff for a wonderful event.
Finally, Mayor Maracus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a few. Councilor Gardner, you are correct. I'll just add in that there will be some fire juggling as well. But they've been there every year, and it's a great entertainment show as well from that perspective. And I did want to add about Deck the Halls, just the website, aurora.ca/Deck the Halls, if anyone wants some more information on that one. As far as the parade, it was magical. I mean, I know all of us were on the floor. I think we all loved it. I think it was probably one of the more busier parades that we've seen over the years. And I think there was just an excitement in the air of people being able to come out and enjoy an event in the town. And so I think everything I've heard was very positive. Staff did a tremendous job. Councilor Kim, you're correct. And giving kudos to staff, Shelley and the whole special events team, and right from Doug all the way down, everyone did a tremendous job in transitioning from a stationary parade to an actual parade, which a lot of municipalities weren't able to do in such a short period of time, but our staff was able to pull it off, and everyone had a tremendous time. Now I'll go into some bad news. Aurora's overnight winter parking restrictions are currently in effect until April 15th, 2022. During this time, please do not park on the road between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. For more information, please visit aurora.ca/winter parking. But some good news, in the spirit of the holiday season, if you've received a parking ticket in Aurora from now until December 13th, your fine can be paid by donating a new unwrapped children's toy or gift cards. And this Friday, from December 3rd to the 5th and December 10th to the 12th, we start off the holiday season by visiting, Aurora's Christmas Market. And it is been named one of the top 100 festival and events in Ontario. The market will be filled with good cheer, hands-on workshops, workshops and activities, fantastic seasonal vendors, and so much more. For more information, everyone can visit aurora.ca/Christmas market. Also on the 3rd, which is Friday at 5:15, we will also be lighting the Christmas tree at Town Park. It's an exciting event. I encourage everyone to be there. I'm looking forward to seeing all of council there. It's always a great time. And this year, new will also be some new letters that Shelley and staff picked up that will be also lit with the tree. They're 7-foot Aurora letters. It's quite exciting to see them there. If you get a chance, go take a look, but you won't see them lit until Friday. So it's going to be an exciting moment when we see the whole park lit up. It's going to be actually quite magical. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone there out for a good time. On December 31st, ring in the new year at Aurora Town Park during Family First Night presented by Healthy Planet. Celebrate the new year with family and friends with entertainment and free activities, and visit aurora.ca/family-first for more information. I also did want to mention once again about Aurora's Accessibility Advisory Committee, as they're seeking public input from our residents, employees, visitors, and local businesses on how we can improve accessibility in Aurora. This is very important, so I encourage everyone to go out there and put in their public input for that. And for more information, if you can visit engageaurora.ca/accessible Aurora. And Mr. Chair, with that, I'm done.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner, did you have an additional one you wanted to add?
Thank you so much for recognizing me. There's going to be a flag raising before we meet again on December 6th to mark the violence against girls and women. I don't know if I'm saying that exactly correctly, but as we know, this is 2021 has been very difficult so far. The number of deaths have been very high, as they were in 2020, and partly because of COVID. So it's happening at 3:00 on Monday outside of the town hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Council, we have no further closed session items, so may I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Gillen, Councillor Humphries, thank you. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you, everybody, for your participation tonight. Have a great evening.